You cannot have happiness in your life without being grateful for what it is you're happy. The peace, the love, the joy, the happiness, it all is derived from the place of gratitude. Hey, what's up? This is Brad with Be Real. Hey, I want to talk to you about something that, look, I know not all of us get excited about it, and you're not going to celebrate it, but really I want to talk about adversity. And like I said, nobody wakes up in the morning and goes, man, I sure hope I get some adversity today. But I'm telling you, adversity is not all a terrible thing. And, adversity is just part of life. And it's an important part of life. And it is the part of life, like you don't measure a person's invincibility by what they have in their checking account or what successes they have. Really, a true measurement of somebody's invincibility is what have they gone through? What did they do during the struggles? What did they do? Did they keep a cool head on the struggles? When they got out of the struggles, did they look back and go, okay, dang, I just learned from that. I'm going to take something from this. I'm going to take this into my life. So, like I said, I know not everybody is excited about adversity, but I'm just telling you, you can't go through, I don't care who it is, very few people. Well, let me tell you this. I don't care how wealthy you are. I don't care who you were born to. At some point in life, some point in time in your life, you will face adversity. So if you can become uncomfortable, if you can become comfortable in the uncomfortable, you will function way better when the uncomfortable comes. So, I'll tell you a story. My wife, my first wife, it was funny. I've noticed this. I've had kids in my house for a long time, three decades, right? And I just think it's funny every time I hear this, like when they bring their report card home and they have like a crappy grade in the class, what's the first thing comes out of their mouth? The teacher don't like me, or the teacher's not fair, or the teacher's this. And you know what? My first one, she'd be like, hey, man, why don't you go up to the school and get them moved out of the class? I'm like, no, that ain't happening. I'm not getting them moved out of the class because it's better for them to face adversity in sixth grade and know how to handle it and realize that in your life, you ain't going to have everybody in your life likes you and everybody in your life don't gin with you, and that you better figure a way how can you take somebody that you maybe don't make the best connection with and still make something positive out of it, because that's just part of life. And I have found that, as the kids gotten older, that's become the case. And sometimes the younger kids, we didn't allow adversity to hit them as much as maybe we should have. And then when they get into adverse situations, they don't handle it as well. So if it's true for the kids, it's true for us. And I'm just telling you that adversity is not all bad. And I've said before, the greatest treasures, the greatest blessings for me have always been on the other side of adversity. And now I kind of get it in my head, okay, well, this is kind of a shitty situation, but if I can keep my mind straight and keep composed, I will, and keep talking to myself and remind myself, hey, if this is a crappy situation, normally on the other side of that crappy situation is the blessing. On the other side of that crappy situation is the treasure. So you got to keep going through that, but it's impossible not to end up going through that. The thing too is there's a huge, like I tell people all the time, you will listen to God when you're in the storm. So if you keep a clear mind about it, you will learn more during adversity than you do the calm waters. And so if you realize that you're going to learn during this phase and take the time to learn from that. But let me tell you something else. There's always four things I talk about. If you find yourself in a place of adversity, here's what I would suggest. Ask yourself, how did I get into this situation? Because did I have effort before the situation happened? Did I have enthusiasm? Did I execute? And was I intense? Those four things. Did I have effort? The effort I needed to keep myself from the situation. Did I have enthusiasm about the situation? Did I get up and execute that day regarding the situation? And was I intentional and intense about it? And you know what? If that's not the case, then guess what? How do you get out of it? Well, put more effort into it, unless you want to stay there. Be enthusiastic about getting out of that situation. Execute. Do something different. If you got into that situation by doing XYZ, guess what? To get out of it, you probably need to do ABC. And then at the same time, I'm telling you, intensity. In my opinion, I ran track when I was younger and all that stuff. I found in races, it was easier for me to stay with the pack than it was for me to drift way back and then to use a bunch of energy to get there. And another thing I realized watching track and going to track, if you go to a track meet or whatever and you see somebody make this mad dash to the finish line, really what you should have thought was they should have exerted more energy throughout. If you got that much energy at the end of the race, you probably should have exerted more energy throughout the race. So it is extremely important to realize that effort and enthusiasm, execution, and then tenacity are extremely important to, did you get into that situation that way? And is that how you're going to get out of that deal? Here's another deal to realize that this is my opinion there. This is opinion by Brad. So everybody has a dream. Everybody has hopes. Everybody has, things that they want to accomplish. And if you think about it, like if you're in sales, and you're in a certain sales force, more than likely there are thousands and thousands of people doing the same thing that you're doing. If you're in software sales, there's thousands and thousands of people doing the same thing. If you are a parent or if you are a friend or whatever the situation is that if you go to bed at night praying for something to happen for positive in your life, let me tell you something, I got some news for you. More than likely, there was more than one person went to bed last night praying for this blessing or praying for this positive situation. So this is my opinion. Sometimes I feel like those adverse situations happen to us to figure out who's serious, who really wants this deal, who wants to persevere through this deal. Because without perseverance, okay, so you're coming up, you hit a negative situation. It's going to take perseverance to break through that, right? But here's the kicker on the deal. It's going to take a ton more. I found it takes a ton more to sustain success than it does to become successful. So that perseverance that you learn during this phase, and when you get to here, you're going to need that the entire time that you're in that position that you want to be in. So the perseverance, everybody goes to bed praying. Think about that. If you hit an adverse situation, go, well, dang, thousands and thousands of people that are in my situation are hitting this adversity at the same time. What are they doing? And if you know what they're doing, they're figuring out how to get out of it. They're figuring out what can I do different. They're putting more energy into it. They're putting more effort into it. They're putting more enthusiasm into it because they want to figure out how to get out of it. Ain't none of them quitting. The successful ones ain't quitting. So during that time, that is a time to become more intentional at that same deal too. The other thing that will, like in my homeless situation, the other thing that will come out of this deal too is when you have adversity, one, everybody needs to hear your story. I'll talk about that more in a second. But two, out of that situation, I have learned that when, sometimes when you're in the valley, here's what I have learned, that you will never not be grateful. You will never not be generous. You will never not have grace. Because when you're in the valley, then that is an actual tool later that when other people in the valley, you're relatable to them. If you've been in the valley, you're going to have the 5 G's. You're going to have grit and you're going to have a growth mindset because you're going to be thinking, how do I get myself out of this situation? So if you really think about it, that's the nurturing part of this deal. That's when that stuff really starts to happen. In my opinion, I tried as well as I could, but when you're flying high on the mountaintop, sometimes you lose sight of generosity. Sometimes you lose sight of gratitude. Sometimes you lose sight of some of these other things. But I'm telling you, during those adversity, when you realize what happened during that time, what did I strengthen during that time? Because you need to carry that with you the more and more that you can. Resilience and adversity is a continuing process. Like I said, my opinion, we are not built for the valley. We're not built for the mountaintop. So in the middle of that deal is where the adversity is. The other really important part is to think about, and I got an illustration here. The really important part to realize too is the other important part of facing adversity and almost being joyful of adversity and celebrating adversity is because however you played the game today is really not as important as how did I play the game yesterday? Because how I played the game yesterday is going to tell me how basically every day is practice. And if you look at it like that, is I'm either growing, I'm strengthening myself, I'm moving forward. So how you played the game yesterday is extremely impactful on how you're going to play the game tomorrow. And I make this analogy all the time. When you're having great days and you have a bunch of them in a row, celebrate them. Don't get me wrong. But really keep in mind, you're playing really easy teams, if you think of it like that. And sooner or later, the national championship's going to come into your life and you're going to have tougher games. You're going to have tougher days. You're going to have tougher clients. You're going to have tougher situations with your kids. You're going to have tougher situations with your significant other. So that's why learning during these adversities, especially in relationships, learning during these adversities and how you can sustain the success of those things is extremely important. The reason I have this tool, think about this. Now, this is adversity. And there are times in our lives that we're like, man, I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to get some muscle. I'm going to grow. I'm going to lose some weight. And you go in the gym and you grab a little weight like this and you start doing this weight all different ways. Your butt is going to be in the gym for hours because that's no resistance. There's no resistance in this. So doing this weight day after day after day, yeah, it might tone you after doing it for 8 hours of carrying this weight right here, but you're not going to get this is not a resistance to you to make a dynamic change in your life. To make a dynamic change in your life, you have to face adversity. You have to pick up a heavy weight. You have, I'll tell you another thing I used to do when I was younger is there was a weight when let's say I was bench pressing. There was a weight I wanted to get to when I was bench pressing. So I would do my normal workout and then I'd ask my friends that were spotting me, I go, put on the weight that's my goal. And I would just put it in my hands and I would just hold it because I wanted for my body and my mind to feel what that goal felt like. And it wasn't this. So if you think of adversity like that, as an illustration like that, it is to go to the gym to make a difference in your life, make a difference in your body, make a difference on how your body looks. Let me tell you this. Let me ask you this. So you start working out. When you wake up the next day, how do you know if you had a good workout yesterday? If your butt's sore, if you are a little tired, if you're a little achy, then guess what? Good job, because that means you had a good workout yesterday. And if you continue to do that, you will change your body. Same thing with life. If you face adversity and you wake up the next day and you're a little tired, you're a little sore, guess what? Good job. Because if you face that enough and do that enough, you will strengthen and you will become better at life. The other thing too is that adversity too is once you've been in that situation, a lot of times hope can get diminished on that deal. That when you get to the side, and you will get to the side, is that adversity is going to increase your hope. Adversity is going to help your compassion. That's another that I didn't bring up earlier when I was bringing up the 5Gs is compassion, because when you've been in those situations, you're relatable to other people. But also too, if you think about like this, God doesn't waste a hurt. God doesn't waste a negative situation. And I know there are some negative situations that are unimaginable, but anyway, I'm talking about 99% of the hardship, 99% of the things that happen to us. God doesn't waste a hurt. So with those things becomes inspiration for others. And that, I tell people all the time, man, you're going to have a heck of a testimony. For some reason, whatever this is going to go through is you're going to have a heck of a story. And when you get through this and you're able to stand up in front of other people and tell this story, it's going to be extremely important, not just for you, but for other people. So I want to tell you something else that I realized. So a year ago, when I was with this company a long time, they decided to go another direction. I was like, man, I just got jacked. And so we started this Be Real Consulting. And when I got home, I started working on my keynote speaking. I got with this lady, Gab, down in Dallas. She was a coach to me. She helped me tremendously. I went down to this speakers camp in Dallas. It was Friday night, all day Saturday, Sunday, and then we came home. So I get down. So I've got in my mind, you know, man, I've been through some crap. I had a tough childhood with my dad. You know, I ended up being homeless. I raised up through the ranks at work and got to be the GM of sales. They canned me. You know, man, I got a story, man. I'm going to go down there. I'm going to get down there because I'm going to go down. I'm going to tell people, poor pitiful Brad, he got jacked his whole life, all that stuff. And I'm going to tell you something. It was a very humbling experience. I counted the one day, Saturday, when everybody was there. There were 80 people in the room. And bro, once I started hearing these other people's stories, by far my life was the least hardship of all the people in the room. So that was the epiphany moment for me, is that the power's not really in the struggle. I mean, yeah, it's not fun to go through it. But the power is, what did I learn in the struggle, and how will that tools be able to go help other people in the struggle? So what I learned in that, yeah, it's important for me to tell my story, and it's important for me. It's relatable to the people. But really, when I told people, yeah, man, I was with this company a long time, and they came and they go, me too. And the more I started telling that, I started thinking, that's really what I need to develop. I need to develop, what can I just kind of throw a lifeline into people when they're in that situation, or share with them what happens on the other side of that situation. What's the fruit that comes out of this adversity? That's what you see. If they keep an eye on the fruit, then they lose sight of this tumultuous time that they're in at this current time. It is also too, and I know I keep saying that, but it's kind of a mission of my life, is whatever it is that you're going through is what's going to end up being extremely powerful. Is dropping back and helping other people. I always said that I didn't feel like God put me through those situations, or I went through those situations to strengthen Brad. I've been a pretty strong person in my life, not maybe emotionally or whatever, but physically I've been a strong person. But and it's crazy, the things that you think, that I went through all this and developed all these tools and invincibility and tenacity and all these other things that I thought was, man, this is going to be exactly what it's going to be, and got to doing public speaking, and this was my wheelhouse, and I'm going to go help thousands and thousands of people. And that was my whole purpose in life. And you know what I realized when my kids started to get older is, really, I feel like that the things that I went through actually made me a better dad. And I noticed that once I got sober and once I got my life together, all of a sudden my children started coming to me and they started asking me questions, and I started helping them. So I'm just saying, I won't go too far in this, but God doesn't waste a hurt. There's things that you're learning during these adversity times, and I'm just telling you, jot them down, write them down, make a mental note or whatever, because I'm telling you, at some point in time, you're going to need those things. And at some other time, somebody else is going to need those things. So I hope you got something out of this deal. Go have a great day and be real.